Crash and burn.
Hey everybody! So tonight I am looking to discuss the 2008 documentary, I Think We're Alone Now. Wow. This movie is brutal and it's so sad. And the thing that I think that makes this movie the saddest, or this documentary, sorry, the saddest, is, I mean, first off, had there not been any sort of updates on the two principals, Jeff and Kelly, this movie still would have been incredibly tragic. But considering that once there was a Blu-ray re-release of this, released I think sometime last year, 2023 I think, there is a couple new videos included on the Blu-ray edition, where it has an update video for Jeff and Kelly, who again are the two principals of this documentary. Jeff Turner and Kelly McCormick, they're both two people who are completely obsessed with Tiffany, the 1980s pop star who is best known for I Think We're Alone Now, I Saw Him Standing There. I mean, her first record is absolutely gold. I think I've already done a video about her first record. I love her first record. I Saw Him Standing There is on there. Spanish Eyes is on there. Promises Made is on there. Danny's on there. I Think We're Alone is on there. Technically speaking, Tiffany's first record doesn't have a bad song on it. It's like 1980s pop perfection. But anyways, these two people, Kelly and Jeff, are both obsessed with Tiffany. And Jeff Turner is definitely a stalker. As in, he's been arrested. He's gotten a number of restraining orders put on him for always stalking Tiffany. But Jeff isn't threatening. Like, Jeff, physically, he poses no threat to Tiffany. He's just a nuisance. And I feel really bad for Jeff constantly, because people like him are just so disconnected from reality because of their mental illnesses that they're never going to be able to hook back up with the rest of us. So he like falls in love with Tiffany when he was like in his 30s, and of course she was just a teenager back then. And he shows up out front of her house. Now I can only imagine for Tiffany how scary that must have been when she was on top of the world and she's like 16, 17 years old. And he's in his 30s at this point, and he shows up like in her front yard going like, "Hi, Tiffany, I love you." And it's like, I can only imagine the terror she must have felt. And then like Jeff is just so completely out of touch with reality because he has Asperger's, or Asperger's as they prefer to call it, and little professor syndrome. And he knows something about everything and everything about something. And socially, he's just very difficult to get along with. Like, he is so completely obsessed with the idea of Tiffany being his best friend that he can't allow anybody else to talk about how much Tiffany means to them. Like, there's one scene, there's at one point where he's out somewhere at night, and there's this girl standing there, and she has a signed copy of Tiffany's CD, her first one. And the girl is attempting to discuss what an impact that Tiffany had on her life. But Jeff can't like allow that to happen because he has to show the world that him and Tiffany are besties all the time, even though they're not. Like, the girl says, "Tiffany shaped the person I am now." And Jeff jumps right in. Tiffany shaped me into the person that I am now. And then he, of course, has to take it too far. And he says, "She called me on the phone in 2000, and she said that I was her best friend, her mentor, and protector." And it's like, Jeff, no, she didn't. Even if you were her best friend and you were her mentor and you were her protector, nobody refers to their friends that way. Like, your best friend, you don't go, "Hey, this is my best friend, mentor, protector, confidant, and best person in the world as far as building up my self-esteem and telling me I'm great and I'm capable of anything. My friend Mike." Nobody does that. Everyone's like, "Who's this?" You're like, "Oh yeah, this is Mike. He's a cool guy." That's about it. "This is Tiffany. She's cool." But you're like, she's like, "I am her best friend, her mentor, and her protector." Her protector? What does she need protection from? Like, technically, she needs protection from people like Jeff. And again, I'm not saying that to knock Jeff. I feel so bad for Jeff. He's just so lost. And it's like, he's only had, I think, like a couple sexual encounters in his life. And he talks about them briefly at the start of the film, where he says that he really liked the one that he had a physical encounter with in 1985. And you can just see the utter and complete devastation on his face when she chose to go with somebody else and that he hasn't seen her in years. And he's like, "I really liked her." And you can see him wearing the heartbreak that he experienced in 1985. You can see him still experiencing it again, like it just happened to him in the late 2000s when this movie is being filmed. I mean, that is just so tragic that the mentally ill are just sort of shoved aside like that. And then given his upbringing and how he got bullied a lot, it's really no surprise that he latched onto Tiffany the way that he did. It's just so tragic. And what else did I want to say about Jeff? I think that was, oh, yes, that's right. Oh, Jesus. So I don't know if anybody knows, but Tiffany posed for Playboy a ways back. And because of that, at least up until the point that when the documentary was being filmed and released, she was still attending porn conventions. Well, Jeff also really gets into Jesus. He joins this church. They talk to the pastor. The pastor loves him. Jeff's really energetic and he's positive and he's really into God. But then you see him talking about what it was like at the porn convention at church. And you can see his pastor in the background pretending to play the guitar. And he is so clearly uncomfortable with everything Jeff is saying. And he's like, oh, it's not really a porn convention. It's a place where friends go to meet with other friends. And old friends meet with other old friends in order to reconnect and all this shit. And I'm like, yo, Jeff, you are so out of touch with reality. And he's like, and then Tiffany was there. And Tiffany is still the most Christ-like person I have ever met. And I'm thinking, there's Tiffany thinking, I'm Christ-like. She's like, Jesus, no, man, I'm just a person in the world. Jeff, stop harassing me, okay? And he has to get 50 pictures taken with him. And, oh, Jesus Christ, Jeff. And then there's the other half of the movie, and that's Kelly McCormick. And Kelly McCormick is a mess. She was born intersexed, so she's what you would call a hermaphrodite, and she looks like Marilyn Manson, quite frankly, to sum it up quickly. And I'm not saying that to be mean to Kelly. It's just to sum how she looks up quickly. She looks like Marilyn Manson. And she identifies as female, and I'm not going to fight that, because Kelly has enough problems, so I think Kelly is a female, so leave her be. And, wow, Kelly, she says she's athletic and she works out a lot, but it doesn't look like she actually does. And she works at Bally's, or she was working at Bally's as a janitor, and she has this jean jacket that she drew a bunch of Bally logos on, like, the big red bees. She did a really good job, too. The jacket is fairly well done, but I just don't know what would compel a person to make this. Like, when I was a kid, I drew on my jean jackets too, but it was like turning them into like low-key battle vests before I even knew what a battle vest was. I had like a bunch of like Guns N' Roses and Slayer patches on them, and I used to draw the Uzi Suicide logo that Guns N' Roses used to have, like the Guns N' Roses. Whenever I think of Uzi Suicide, I think of the EP Lies, and I used to draw that on my jean jacket a couple times because I thought like Uzis were cool, and I thought like using the word suicide made me like a badass. And of course Guns N' Roses was involved, and I absolutely love Guns N' Roses, and I loved them when I was a kid. So I used to do the same type of things to my jean jackets, but it's a Bally's Total Fitness jacket, like hand drawn. And it's just, oh man. And they end up going to see Tiffany at some bar somewhere, and Kelly has to stay with Jeff, and Kelly pulls out this book that she brought about like how to get into shape before she meets Tiffany or whatever. And Jeff was like, oh yeah, that's good, that way it can help get rid of your gut roll. That's what he says to her. And it's like, oh fucking Christ, I can't believe they put these two people in the same room. It's like a steel cage death match between the two biggest Tiffany fans. And you can tell how uncomfortable Kelly is when Jeff's like, you can do that without needing a body sculpt. It can get rid of that gut roll. And it's like, Jeff, you are so fucking clueless. Don't say that to somebody. Jesus Christ, does he lack tact? Anyways, yeah, I mean, apparently Kelly had a bad bike injury or something. She was in a coma for a while when she was younger. And somehow she ended up having a 5-hour phone conversation with Tiffany that I'm pretty sure never happened. And whereas Kelly is not a stalker. I think calling Kelly a stalker is completely wrong because Kelly never approached Tiffany. Kelly never, found herself on Tiffany's property. She never goes to anything Tiffany is at, other than the one show she makes it to at the end with Jeff. And Jeff is a stalker because, he is a stereotypical textbook stalker. Like, he's been arrested for it. I just don't think it's fair to lump Kelly in. But then, yeah, the update videos are so tragic. Like, Jeff had a heart attack, a massive heart attack, and he laid on the floor of his apartment for hours until he was found because the only friend he has is Doug Hawes. And he's still, fortunately enough, at least as far as the updated video, whenever they were filmed, are concerned, he's still friends with Doug Hawes. And in it, Doug talks about how Jeff is realizing now that he's in his late 70s that he's never going to have a family of his own and he's never going to get married. And it's just completely heartbreaking. Like, nothing about this movie is easy, but it's really compelling. And then when you toss in the update videos with Kelly meets this chick online and they start dating, but the whole time the chick was just scamming Kelly for money. And she took a lot of money from Kelly. And then Kelly starts to break down at one point in the video, and she's like, but I don't know why you're doing this to me when I know you're a really good person and all this shit. Like, and it's like, Kelly is so desperate to be loved that she'll let somebody scam money out of her, believing that they love her. She has these little dolls of things in her apartment that whenever they fall over, that means they need to be hugged and shit. I don't know. This is brutal. Like, this movie is brutal. Like, it's unrelenting in its emotional brutality. This movie hits hard, especially once you get past the awkward part that Jeff is technically a convicted stalker. He's just not a threat physically to Tiffany. He's harmless. I mean, I loved the way the movie was shot. I loved the use of, like, the paper. Like, they'd put this up like this, and it would say the person's name on it. And then it would shoot down like that as the person was being introduced. The end credits were done the same way. It's just such a cool movie. And it's done with the right sense about it. Like, the filmmakers did not make this movie to make fun of Jeff and Kelly. And the score was amazing. And the score was really emotional as well. And it was really, I don't know, everything about this movie is amazing but brutal. And I think that's where I'm going to stop because it's been like a little over 12 minutes. So thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little over 12 minutes while I discuss when did this come out? The 2008 documentary. I feel like crying now. The 2008 documentary, I Think We're Alone Now. Like always, if you like this review or you like this movie, don't forget to go out and do something nice for somebody. But don't forget that you guys are absolutely amazing, and the world is a way better place because you are in it. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to go do something fun. Have a good night.